Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course, the king of all, those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. And welcome in to everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates from coast to coast. Everybody listening in also and watching on television. Thanks for joining us on Pick Your Favorite Cable Operator across these United States of America, Hotel TV, and of course a big hello to our friends on all streaming platforms and Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, we'll dive right into college basketball, and it's March Madness time, folks. ACC tournament preview. Let's face it. I mean, this is Duke and Duke and Duke. And of course, for me, nice round of applause for Duke, because of course, being a Duke alum, it is a happy time. Have to struggle through football season, all the other seasons, just to get to basketball. But the bigger question is, can anybody stop Cooper Flagg as Duke, of course, looks to extend to conference dominance with eyes on the NCAA title? And of course, pick your favorite outlet. Everybody's reporting on this. The ACC tournament starts, well, essentially tomorrow. And I don't know if there's a whole lot of intrigue on it. We already know that Duke's at the top of it. But can anybody compete with them? Will the ACC produce more than 3 NCAA tournament teams? I don't really know about that. Can NC salvage maybe a disappointing season and secure a bid? I think UNC is going to get in there, because they played the last handful of games, we'll say the last 10 games, very well. And even in the last game at home against Duke, they were down big. They were down by double digits. They came out in the second half. They took the lead by about 6, only to get, well, punched in the nose, and Duke turned around and won the game by 13 points. But the bigger question is, will Duke dominate the ACC tournament like it did in the regular season? I mean, so far so good for the season for Cooper Flagg. And this guy is only a freshman. I think he is certainly the number one pick. And he is the presumptive number one pick in the NBA draft coming up. And, of course, lived up to the enormity and the hype that arrived when he came to Durham from the great Northeast up in Maine. And he's a good guy. He's a good kid. You know, one of our friends has a friend that goes to school with him. And he's a very humble kid. He's just not one of those kids that are stuck on himself. He's a regular guy. I'd love to see him stick around Durham for another 3 years. I'd like to see him graduate, but who the hell knows what's going to happen there. Nonetheless, but you ask, all right, he was very dominant, and he'll go down as one of the best for the freshman class in Duke and ACC history, and he's not alone. Look, a sporting cast featuring fellow NBA prospects, Kaman Mulach and Con Canupel is a very good one, has helped Duke to a 19-1 run through ACC play. That's pretty damn good. And the nation's largest scoring margin, 22.1 points per game. That's crazy. It's Duke and then everybody else in Charlotte. Now, the bigger question is, can Clemson or Louisville even challenge? And look, it's a down year for the ACC. Clemson and Louisville are the only NCAA tournament locks outside of Duke in the ACC. Clemson handed Duke its only ACC loss in a 77-71 win at Clemson back in February, but Duke beat Louisville on the road 76-65 in their only meeting back in December. Bigger question is, can either mount a challenge to Duke at this juncture in the season? I don't really think so. I mean, then you ask, will North Carolina play its way into the NCAA tournament? It's been a disappointing campaign, as I mentioned before, for Carolina, but, well, let's face it. They started out the season as the nation's number 9 team, but obviously have fallen to, well, a bubble team at this point. And UNC finished strong by beating up on ACC bottom dwellers in 6 games, winning I don't know, a bunch of games that they should win anyway. But, of course, then they end up getting smacked in the face by Duke in that last game against them on Saturday. And, look, they'll need to really impress the daylights out of the committee to advance to the NCAA tournament or just simply win the tournament. So, of course, you can watch it. All times, of course, are Eastern. March 11 through March 15, Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's going to be on the 4-letter network. They're number 2, and they're U, and the ACC network as well. And Tuesday, March 11th, first round has Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. In Game 1, Cal and Va-Tech at Game number 2, and Syracuse and Florida State at Game 3. That's 7 p.m. tip-off time. Wednesday, March 12, has Virginia and Georgia Tech. Game 5 has Carolina and the Game 1 winner between Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. Game 6 has Stanford against the Game 2 winner, which would be between Cal and Va-Tech. And Game 7 is number 6 SMU against the Game 3 winner, either Syracuse or Florida State. And, of course, Thursday, March 13th, has Duke against the Game 4 winner. It's either Virginia or Georgia Tech. Game number 9, Wake Forest against the Game number 5 winner. That's either North Carolina or the Game 1 winner, which is Pitt and Notre Dame. And then, of course, Thursday has Clemson against the Game 7 winner, which is either SMU or Syracuse or Florida State. And then, of course, we get to the semifinals, and you know what goes on there. So, I mean, it looks pretty good for Duke, of course, but you never know what happens in these tournaments. I mean, anything could happen. That's the best part about these tournaments, and that's the whole idea of the whole March Madness thing in the first place. How about the Big East, though? It seems like St. John's is the tournament darling. They are the Cinderella, which really isn't much of a Cinderella. It's just that they haven't been there so long, and Rick Pitino's got these kids playing. And, of course, think about the idea of Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley, of course, from UConn, at Madison Square Garden. I mean, that is going to be one hell of a matchup if we could see that one. But you look at the Big East tournament, and of course St. John's, not UConn, is in the driver's seat at Madison Square Garden. And essentially, it's their home arena in this particular case. So they're playing that tournament at home. And of course, there's a few storylines to watch in here. And it's Rick Pitino. Of course, Rick Pitino, this guy's back. And just like that, he's back and dominating this time in the Big East. Oh, but yet again. So the Red Storm clinched their first Big East title since 1985, back when they had Louis Carnesecca. And, of course, they've climbed into the top 10 as well. They ended the regular season winning 16 of 17, with the only loss coming to Villanova. That was a bucket that decided that game. But they did survive a wild game, an overtime game, against Marquette. Watch out for Marquette. Boy, those guys are good. Shaka Smart's got those kids playing. Nobody seemed to be able to really compete with them in the conference slate, though, outside of that. And Pitino led St. John's to a place it hasn't been, I don't know, 40 years. And he's now in a prime position not only to run the Big East, but to contend for a national title once again during the comeback stage of his career. How do you like that? So the bigger question beyond that in this particular conference is UConn three-peat attempt? Are they really ready, or are they dead? The Huskies started out the season looking like a legitimate three-peat contender after dominating over the last couple of years. And the dream of that third consecutive title, however, is truly on life support at this time. And UConn will enter the Big East tournament with a 22-9 record overall, as they are the number 3 seed in the tournament. And they plummeted out of the national rankings completely in February. And, of course, that always deserves a nice round of applause. Yet, that would be laughter, though. Of course, and I have to say that, boy, UConn really has ridden a roller coaster. And, well, let's face it, back in February, they suffered a couple of really bad losses, including a couple of losses to St. John and to Xavier, Villanova, and Seton Hall. And it's hard to count Dan Hurley and the Huskies out, though, given their recent track record. But the back half of the season has not been kind to UConn, or better yet, they haven't been kind to themselves. They've got seemingly a crybaby for a coach, and he's going to cry his way into Madison Square Garden and try to get calls there. He's not going to get the calls, folks. Now, the next question is, can Villanova and Xavier play their way in? I think Xavier can, because they have played very, very well on the road. They've won, I think, their last 7 games or whatnot. But both Villanova and Xavier need a little bit of help just to make the tournament. Now, Villanova went 18-13 this season, though they did grab wins over St. John's, UConn, and a 15-point blowout over Marquette late in the year. But they still are on the outside looking in, entering the Big East tournament. So they're going to have to do real well, probably get to the final game to be able to get into the NCAA tournament. Now, Xavier is in a similar boat, and the Musketeers, after a rough start to Big East play, ended their year winning 7 straight to get to 21-10, just 1 game behind UConn, and finished tied for 4th in the conference. They also did beat UConn and Marquette, but those are really their only big wins. And a run this week would solidify a trip back to the NCAA tournament. And in fact, looking at what the tournament bracket looks like right now, I'm looking at a partial of it, and it seems the first round has Butler and Providence, and then DePaul, who is just awful, squaring off against Georgetown, who they just beat. And how humiliating for Georgetown, losing to DePaul, Seton Hall, and Villanova. And then, of course, you have those winners going on to play St. John's, Marquette, Xavier, Creighton, and UConn. Watch out for Creighton. This tournament final in the Big East could come down to St. John's and Creighton, which it probably ought to. You never know what's going to happen there, folks. Anyway, back here in a few minutes on The Circus. More college hoops. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100, again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by your friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. And folks, you should check out those baseball games, the women's softball games. Easily the most fun that I've ever had at any game is a women's softball game. The college games are incredible. Nice round of applause, of course, for the Lady Coyotes. And boy, the athletics there are a lot better than one could ever imagine, and they rival any four-year institution. College of Southern Nevada Athletics, folks. Make sure you check them out. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates and independents from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees, the San Francisco 49ers, of course, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in to everybody else up and down the West Coast, throughout the heartland, all the way down to Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, War Eagle, and that's home of the Atlanta Braves as well. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, plus all of our other viewers on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW Cable Television affiliates, in select markets, Hotel TV, and over 500,000 rooms, and everybody streaming on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, Stitcher, Deezer, and every other platform that's available for the Sports Circus. All right, moving on with the Big 12 tournament, sticking with college hoops there, Big 12 tournament preview. You know, Houston has just been one of those teams that just seems to be year in and year out. They win and they win and they win. But right along with them, though, is Iowa State. Watch out for Texas Tech. How about those Red Raiders? And the bigger question is, what's going to happen in the Big 12? You know, we could, I guess, pontificate all we want. But between Houston, Texas Tech, and Iowa State, we really should be in for a great week in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament. And there's a few storylines to watch as well. And Houston cruising into Big 12 tournament play. And Houston has rolled through a very solid Big 12 this season. And the Cougars look like a legit national contender. They closed out the regular season with 10 straight wins, including wins over Iowa State, Texas Tech. And they've lost just one time since the end of November. And LJ Cryer has dominated offensively, and the Houston defense has been remarkable. Those guys can play D, folks. They are good. And the Cougars haven't let a team score more than 65 points during their 10-game win streak either. So the big question is, if Kelvin Sampson is going to make a title run, this is the perfect chance to do it. That starts in Kansas City, where the Cougars will get, of course, the double bye. Now, can Iowa State and Texas Tech catch them? So the Cyclones look incredibly dominated early in the season, and they climbed as high as number 2. But then, of course, that's the program best, by the way. But after falling a little bit, look, they were on a 15-1 tier, but lately the team has been dealing with both significant injuries and illnesses, which has caused them to drop 3 of its last 5 games to close out the season. And Houston held the Cyclones to just 59 points in their one matchup that they had last month. But remember, injuries and illness did play a part of that. Now, on the other hand, with Texas Tech, well, they may be the better option. The Red Raiders have climbed their way into the rankings after a very solid run through Big 12 play, which included a wild overtime win against the Houston Cougars last month. And they have won 3 straight to end the season and finished second in the Big 12. Now, if anyone's going to dethrone Houston, it's likely going to be one of those two. But what happened to Kansas? Here's an interesting thing. Now, I just saw in the last it was senior day for Kansas, for the Jayhawks. And the oddity is that they were wearing solid red jerseys. Now, I don't know about you folks, but we think of the blue bloods, the blue teams, and of course we have Duke, Kansas, Carolina, and Kentucky, right? Those are the blue teams, so to say. And you ask yourself, well, wait a minute. How the hell did Kansas turn a little bit of red that's on their Jayhawk mascot into the whole jersey being red? It's the strangest thing, but I'll tell you what, here's something that a lot of people don't know. The Kansas Jayhawks, I think it's in the last 40 years, they have not lost on senior day. It's been about 40 years since they have lost on senior day, the last game of the season at home. That's incredible. I mean, I don't know of a better stat than that one. That's one of those ones you shake your head. You're like, are you kidding me? I just have a hard time understanding it because it's so hard to go so long without losing a game at home. But ironically, it's that senior day where they just, I guess if every game could be declared as senior day, then Kansas would be perfect every year. I don't know. But anyway, you ask what happened to them. Preseason number 1 in the nation and entering the Big 12 tournament perhaps the worst possible way. Kansas finished the regular season with a 20-11 record and lost 7 of their last 13. They fell out of the national rankings for the first time in years and suffered one of the worst blowout losses in the Bill Self era when they lost to Brigham Young by more than 30. Now, of course, with all due respect, Brigham Young is a solid club as well. Very good defensive club. And the team that generally dominates the Big 12 and has a huge advantage with what essentially is a home conference tournament looks far from a team that can make the NCAA tournament run. Looks like Kansas is going to have to win the tournament, this Big 12 tournament. And if there's any hope of that left, of course, it's going to have to be that run through the Big 12, or they're going to have to get some mercy from the committee. And I don't really know if that's going to happen. I shake my head with that. It doesn't really matter who they play. I mean, look, in the first round, it's going to be Cincinnati and Oak State, Colorado and TCU, Arizona State, and it looks to me like, well, UCF is going to play Utah as well. And then, of course, you have the bottom teams there with Kansas. But you watch and you ask yourself, can they really get in there? I just don't think they can. I just shake my head and say, well, I don't really think that anything great's going to happen with those guys. But let's move on. Let's just take a look at some other things that we need to here because, let's face it, folks, each week we talk about the NCAA basketball standings, and in many cases, people seem to overlook those automatic bids and those schools that you're like, well, who the hell are they? So let's take a quick look at those ones that you may not know about. And these are your tournament champions and or possible tournament champions. In the American East, you're probably going to see the Bryant Bulldogs. I mentioned them last week. The Bryant Bulldogs are likely going to get into this tournament, folks. You need to know who they are. They're 14-2 and 21-11 overall. They do hold a one-game edge over the Vermont Catamounts. So it's likely going to be Bryant out of the American East. Over in the American, it's Memphis, the Tigers at number 16. They're going to get in either way, whether they win the American or not. But the North Texas Mean Green can solidify themselves with a win against Memphis or a win in the American Conference. So those guys are 23-6 overall. Pretty good. Over in the A10, it's Virginia Commonwealth at 15-3, tied with George Mason. We'll see what happens with the tournament. The Dayton Flyers are 3 games back. They're not going to compete. So it's really a 2-horse race over in the A10. And, of course, my Loyola Ramblers, well, they've seen better days, but they're not so bad. If they're 12-6 in a conference and 20-11 overall, they're going to have to, 20-10 overall, they're going to have to win the tournament, the A10 tournament, to get into the big dance. Remember the whole Sister Jean thing. But it looks like it's going to be Vacom or George Mason out of the A10. We already know about the ACC with Duke and Clemson and Louisville. Those are your 3 locks for the tournament. Everybody else, it's a crapshoot. Over in the Atlantic Sun, and you have a 2-horse race over there. We'll see what happens between Lipscomb and North Alabama, both at 14-4 and 24-9 overall. So if you don't know who Lipscomb is, the Bisons, you better check them out. Same thing with North Alabama, the Lions. They've won 24 games. One of those teams is going to win 25 games. And I'll tell you what, folks, Watch out for those little teams. They may be a 15 or 16 in the bracket, but you never know what's going to happen there. Over in the Big 12, we've got Houston, Texas Tech, Arizona, BYU, and Iowa State, all likely going to make the tournament. The other ones is a crapshoot. Over in the Big East, we already know it's going to be St. John's, likely Creighton. Houston will probably get a shot in there, and I think Marquette will squeeze their way in there too. Xavier's going to have to win their way in just like Villanova. Over in the Big Sky, familiarize yourself with this one, folks. Northern Colorado, they will be in the tournament at 15-3. They're tied with the Montana Grizz, but Northern Colorado is the better team, and watch out for the Bears. Those guys are pretty damn good. Over in the Big South, here's a team that is severely underrated, and they may get into the Sweet 16. That's High Point. High Point, the High Point Panthers are 14-2 overall, 28-5 overall. So they're 14-2 in conference, I should say, and 28-5 overall. Watch out for High Point. Those guys can make a little bit of noise, and nobody knows who the hell they even play with. In case you didn't know, they play with Winthrop, UNC Asheville, the Bulldogs, Radford College, the Highlanders, Presbyterian, the Blue Hose, Longwood, the Lancers, Charleston, Gardner-Webb, and University of South Carolina, upstate, the Spartans. But it's High Point that will show the way, and they will be in the tournament, folks. Big Ten got a whole bunch of teams going to the tournament. Michigan State, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, they're all likely going to get in. Illinois has got to fight their way in just like Oregon. Maybe Oregon might sneak in there. You never know. But once you hit Indiana, they have to win. They have to get to the final game to make the tournament. Same thing with Oregon, I believe, but all the others will get in there. Over in the Big West, before we go to break, the UC San Diego Tritons, they will be in the tournament, folks. Watch out for these guys. They're 28-4 overall, 18-2 in the Big West. They are good. I mean, they are really good. Watch out for those guys. And you may even see the UC Irvine Anteaters in there. The Aardvarks might sneak in there at 27-5, just one game behind UC San Diego. Back here with the Coastal Atlantic in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus TheSportsCircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Deezer, and a whole bunch of others. Also, make sure to check out the tabs at the top of the page. There's one called Store. And check out the Sports Circus store for all your fun springtime and summer gear. And hell, even your cold weather months as well. There's all kinds of hats, hoodies, coats, sweatpants, t-shirts, pillows, travel mugs, coffee mugs, mouse pads, you name it, they're there. All kinds of cool stuff. Make sure you mention the Sports Circus, mention me, Ringmaster Sal, for a 10% discount on all merchandise. How do you like that? All right, welcome back to everybody on TV and radio. You know who you are. Got some pretty cool guests coming up, too, by the way. I'm going to bring on Chad Beebe. In case you don't know who Chad is, you better check him out. Chad was wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins for a few years over there in Minneapolis. Chad is a very good, cool guy. He's one of those guys you want to sit and hang out and have a cocktail with and just chew the fat. He's a high-value guy, and we're going to bring Chad on and a few others as well. Looks like we're going to have Anthony Munoz on the show as well. Probably, arguably, one of the best linemen to ever play professional football. All right, moving on. Sticking with college hoops, I said we're going to come back with a Coastal Athletic. And these are for these people that are filling brackets out. You don't know who some of these colleges or universities are. And I said in my last one, I said, watch out for UC San Diego out of the Big West. Watch out for High Point. High Point's going to be one of those ones that has a real shot to get into the 16 or better out of the Big South. Also, the Northern Colorado Bears from the Big Sky, as well as Lipscomb out of the Atlantic Sun and Vacom, Virginia Commonwealth, or George Mason out of the A-10, along with the Bryant Bulldogs from the American. Yeah, there's some possible upsets here. And we're going to go right back to this with the Coastal Athletic, and that is being led right now by Towson. Towson's going to have to probably run the table and win a tournament to get into the tournament, because really, I would argue that UNC Wilmington, the Seahawks, will probably get in there whether they are a tournament champion or not, because at 24 wins against 7 losses, that's pretty good. And see, folks, you got to look at their non-conference schedules, and you got to look at who they've beaten and did they beat them bad, right? So we look at those teams, and let's go back to, for example, UC San Diego, the Tritons. They're 28-4 overall. Now, they've only lost 4 games. That's it. 4 games. And you say, all right, well, how good are they? Well, all right, here's a heavy dose of reality. They're 27th in the nation in points scored. They are 50th in three-pointers and 81st in field goal percentage. Not bad. Rebounds are towards the bottom of the food chain. But we look at what they've done in their schedule, and you say, they've actually pretty well. So let's go all the way back here. Let's go, and just in this month alone. Actually, what I want to do is I want to go back to the games earlier in the season when they're playing the non-conference games. So let's go all the way back to November. And so they had a tough loss against San Diego State, their local rival right there. It's just a couple of buckets. But they did beat Pepperdine, and of course that was on the road. They beat Sacramento State, a very good squad. They lost to Seattle. It's a bad loss. But then they won against James Madison, and they also won a game against Toledo, and they also had another nice victory. And that other nice victory, by the way, of course, as I stall waiting for this to load up, they had another nice victory against LaSalle. And LaSalle, they really are more of a defensive-minded squad, but you play those on your schedule, right? So you look at these teams, you say, all right, well, that was their November. But they also beat Santa Barbara. They also beat, who is this? Let's see. They beat the Banana Slugs, I should say. Oh, they beat Bakersfield, the Roadrunners. They beat Idaho. They beat Utah State. They beat San Diego, University of San Diego. They beat Occidental. They doubled up 109-51. I mean, that in itself is remarkably embarrassing. When you can beat a team 109-51, something tells me that's a really rough day for the other team. And they almost did the same thing to Cal State Fullerton, 90-51. I mean, they're not just winning games, folks. They're winning big. They lost a nail-biter to UCI, who is right there. UCI is a very good squad. And they destroyed Long Beach State at Long Beach State, 80-54. So you say, well, okay, well, who the heck is UC San Diego, the Tritons? Well, I'll tell you what, folks. You look at UC San Diego and you say, can they make noise? You're damn right they can make noise. And the losses they had one real bad loss. Other than that, these guys are good. In the Coastal, again, UNC Wilmington, they have a pretty good non-conference schedule. They play some really good teams. UNC Wilmington is likely going to get in there. Conference USA, Liberty is 25-6 overall. They're in whether they win a conference tournament or not. It's really up to Jacksonville or Middle Tennessee to try to win that conference championship. Over in the Horizon League, Robert Morris is showing the way. Robert Morris is going to be in the tournament, and they're with some pretty good squads over there too. So watch out for Robert Morris. And, you know, people used to laugh about Cleveland State. Oh, they're terrible. They used to laugh about, like, Chicago State and whatnot. Tell you what, folks, these are better teams, and they have retooled, and everything has changed in the landscape of college basketball. Robert Morris will be in the tournament. Over in the Ivy League, well, let's face it, you got to win to tournament to get in, and Yale is clearly the best squad over there, 20-7 overall, 13-1 in conference play. Over in the Metro Athletic, you're going to see Quinnipiac, the Bobcats, if they can handle Merrimack in the championship for the Metro Athletic Conference. I don't think any other team in there really has a shot, but we're going to move past them over to the Mid-American. The Akron Zips, who just can't seem to win anything in football, but they sure seem to win in basketball. And these guys are good. They're 25-6 overall and 17-1 in the MAC. And it looks like the Akron Zips are going to fight their way into the NCAA Big Dance. Now, another team with a shot to get in there, maybe the Miami Redhawks. But this one is Akron all over. Over the Mideast, you have two teams battling it out at Norfolk State and South Carolina State. And between the two of them, Norfolk State is just a little bit better. I'd honestly, either one of those teams are going to get pounded in the tournament, but I think it's going to be Norfolk State. Over the Missouri Valley, this is a severely underrated conference. It's the Drake Bulldogs at 29-3. They will be in the tournament. And watch out for the Bradley Braves. The Bradley Braves may sneak in there too, albeit a couple of games behind Drake. Bradley's probably going to get an invite. And the usual suspects like the Northern Iowa Panthers, they have lost a little bit more than they're used to using. They're 20-12 right now, and normally they're about 24 wins for the Northern Iowa. And so they were the seemingly constant mid-America, or better yet, the mid-major team. That's what I'm looking for, the mid-major that usually gets in there. This time it's going to be Drake, possibly Bradley. Over in the Mountain West, it is New Mexico showing the way at 25-6 overall. You're going to see them in the Big Dance, whether they win the Mountain West tournament or not. It's likely they're going to get in, and you probably could see the Utah State Aggies. And remember, Utah State lost to UC San Diego, the Tritons, And now Utah State is 25-6 overall. Watch these little teams because these are the ones that are going to be bracket busters. Over in the Northeast, Central Connecticut, nobody saw this coming. These guys were bad. They were really bad. Boy, did they turn it around. 14-2 in the conference, 25-6 overall. Central Connecticut will be in the big dance. Watch out for those guys, folks, because they can upset some clubs too. Over in the Ohio Valley, you're going to have to win the tournament to get in because none of these teams are very good against outside of their division. But I think it's going to be SIU Edwardsville that is going to come out of the Ohio Valley Conference. Over in the Patriot League, it's Bucknell. Bucknell over American. I believe that's what's going to happen because, well, let's put it this way. They're both 13-5, but Bucknell, we're going to give them a slight edge. And as we look up and down the Patriot League, those are really the only two teams that would belong in the dance. And I really believe it's going to be the Bison from Bucknell that get in there. Over in the SEC, we already know half the damn conference is going to get into the dance. Moving on to the Southern, the Chattanooga Mocs at 24-8 are 2 games ahead of NC Greensboro. They will get in the dance. Chattanooga is not a real good team. They'll get in there and probably be a first-round exit. Over in the Southland, don't count these guys out. McNeese, you've seen them in the tournament before, and they're pretty damn good. They're a good road team. You've got to be a good road team to win in the NCAA tournament. McNeese at 25-6 overall, 19-1 in the conference, and there's some good clubs in there too. But watch out for McNeese. They'll be a 15 or a 16 on the board, but don't count them out, folks. Southern over in the South, over in the SWAC, better yet. Southern is battling it out with Jackson, and one of those two teams is going to end up getting in there, or it could be Bethune-Cookman, but really it's likely going to be the Southern Jags that are going to probably sneak in there. Over in the Summit, Omaha and St. Thomas, the Tommies, are battling it out, likely going to be the Omaha Mavericks in the big dance, although they lost 3 more games than St. Thomas. In the Sun Belt, South Alabama and James Madison battling it out. St. Mary's, watch out. There is your Cinderella of the dance right there, folks, out of the West Coast Conference. And they beat Gonzaga twice this year. It's likely going to be St. Mary's to come out of there. And in the WAC, Utah Valley is tied with Grand Canyon, 23-7 both, but it's going to be Utah Valley in the big dance. Back here, going to talk hockey when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi Code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Mary Master Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. We're just going to give AMP a round of applause right now because we can. Why do we do that? The reason we do that is for all of our production. For the years and years and years that we've been on here, it's been an AMP TV hand in the production every show, actually for the last 1,500 odd shows. And now we've done thousands of shows. And the good news is that people like the production. They do like the sounds, of course, the distribution and so forth. So we always give them a round of applause whenever we can. So here we go again. So there. Moving on. Going to finish up here real quick with college hoops and talk a little bit about the final regular season rankings in the NCAA basketball. It's going to be Duke coming in at number 1, and that is going to be likely. Now, the new ones haven't really been shown to me just yet, but I'm looking at the previous weeks, and I know Auburn is going to drop to number 2. They will likely stay at a number 3. Houston, Duke will be 1, likely Auburn 2, Houston likely number 3, Tennessee, likely number 4. That's not really going to change. I don't think Florida's going to move at number 5 because they've been winning right along here. St. John's will likely stay put at number 6, finish the regular season at number 6. Alabama, with their win, better yet, actually, it would be Alabama likely jumping over St. John's, and Alabama will probably jump to number 5 with their win against Auburn. And so look for Alabama to go to number 5, St. John's maybe stay where they're at. Florida maybe go down to number 7. I don't necessarily know about that one. Those 3, who the hell knows what's going to happen with 6 and 7, but it likely will be Bama going to 5. Michigan State will likely stay where they're at despite destroying Michigan at Chrysler. Texas Tech will probably stay at number 9. Iowa State, with their win against K-State, leaves them in the top 10. Clemson, with an easy win at Va Tech, they'll likely finish 11. Wisconsin, with their loss to Penn State, albeit at Penn State, they'll probably drop down a little bit. They'll probably drop down to about 14. I wouldn't say any further than that, but that is a 11-point loss on the road. Wisconsin's solid. Maryland will likely stay where they're at, maybe jump up to number 12. I would imagine that Louisville would probably go to number 13 if that's the case. Missouri, with their loss at Kentucky, will probably drop down to about number 17. Memphis will climb back up to 15. I'm guessing Michigan will likely drop down to about number 20. Purdue will probably drop as well with their 8-point loss to Illinois. Boy, you never know what the hell's going to happen with that Illinois team. Purdue probably drops down to about 19. Kentucky will go up to about 18 with their win against Missouri. St. Mary's, they had their nice win at Oregon State. St. Mary's should actually be right around 15. I just wonder if they're going to get any respect at any time soon. At 27-4, now they have 4 losses, mind you. And you look at the teams ahead of them, right? So the teams ahead of them, you ask yourself, Marquette with 5 more losses are ahead of them. Kentucky with 6 more losses ahead of them. Purdue with 7 more losses ahead of them. I don't really know about that one. Michigan, the same thing, and on, all the way up to Memphis at 16 currently. They have 5 losses. But St. Mary's deserves to be right around 15 or 14, and I hope that the committee does the right thing for them. They should hopefully get a 3 slot in the dance. And if they don't, there's something terribly wrong here. So we go below them to Texas A&M. With their win against LSU, we'll probably put them right around 20. Brigham Young, with their win at Utah, maybe put them to 21st. Arizona, with their loss to Kansas, might even drop them out of the rankings completely. And Mississippi State, the same thing. They'll probably drop out against Arkansas. So that's pretty much your top 25, and we'll see what happens with that. Shifting over to the National Hockey League, and things are starting to take shape. We had the trade deadline come and go. There were 23 moves. 23 moves, I think, in the last hour or two just of the trade deadline for the National Hockey League. Now, folks, in case you don't know, technically there's about 20 games left in the season. They play 82 games, but less than a quarter of the season is left. And you've got all these players moving here, there, and everywhere. And you ask yourself, well, what really happened at this trade deadline? I mean, look, there's winners and losers and all this other crap. And you ask yourself, who really made moves that are really going to help them? So you have contenders and pretenders and all this other garbage. And you say, well, wait a minute. Which ones look good from a standing position right now? Which ones may fall? So over in the Eastern Conference, it's the Washington Capitals and the Great 8. Now, Alex Ovechkin is only 9 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record, and I hope he does it this season. So he's got himself, well, looks like he's got 18 games to score 9 goals. And if there's an empty net opportunity, he's going to end up getting it for sure. Washington is ahead of everybody with 92 points. As a matter of fact, if you look in the entire National Hockey League, they're tied with Winnipeg over in the West. But let's stick to the East here. Washington, 92 wins. And their goal differential is a staggering 65. 65. The only team better than them is Winnipeg, and that's league-wide. So they have scored 65 more goals than their opponents. And you say, well, geez, they've played 64 games, and they've won 42 games, but that means they've scored 1 more goal per game that they have played this year against everybody. On the road, they're 21-7-2, and that's not a bad road record, folks, because you know what? That's about the same as what they've done at home. They're 21-7 at home as well, yet they have 4 more overtime losses. But Washington is a pretty good squad. But did they help themselves at the deadline? Is what you got to ask yourself. I don't necessarily believe they did, but I'll tell you what, the reigning Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers sure did. They sit 9 points behind Washington for the number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference. But Florida, what they did was they went out and they got the antagonizing, really good forward Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins at the deadline. And they also picked up a defenseman, Seth Jones, from the Chicago Blackhawks, who is a solid defenseman. But, you know, Washington didn't do those moves. So now you've got somebody up front and somebody on your back 6 that could be basically on the top line of either squad. And so the Florida Panthers really helped themselves out. You say, well, you know, you lost a couple of players. Yeah, but they picked other players up too in the offseason. So Florida, and I have to tell you, I don't know what the odds are. Now I'm a little bit curious to find out what the odds are for Florida to win the Stanley Cup once again. And I'm going to guess that they are probably the odds-on favorite, if not they're right near the top. And we're going to take a look while we're talking about this because as I see it, I don't know of a better team than Florida in the East. That's for damn sure. Those guys are awfully good. So let's take a look at the futures market and let's see. They have in the East, it is the Florida Panthers. That is ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Washington Capitals. Now, Florida, essentially to win the Stanley Cup, they are tied with the Dallas Stars. Those are the 2 best teams in hockey, apparently. Now, according to MGM Resorts International, they have them tied at plus 600, basically a 6-1 shot. They got Washington at 11-1. The Lightning at 12-1. Over at Caesars Palace, it is the Panthers that are favored 5.5-1 over Dallas being 7-1. How do you like that? And over at Bally's, it is the Panthers at 6-1 versus the Stars 7-1. So really, as I just thought about, it is the Florida Panthers that are the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And that's with all the three major casino groups. So back to these standings, you say, well, albeit they're 9 points behind Washington, they are clearly the more solid club. Another solid club is the Carolina Hurricanes. They made a couple of moves here and there, but these guys don't play very well on the road, where Florida plays very consistent, just like Washington on the road. Washington's a better road team, and they're a better home team, only by a little bit, but both of these two teams are the best teams in the East, and Carolina is not a very good road team. The other good road team, which of course they seem to fade every year, are the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have essentially the same record as Florida on the road. And when you start thinking about the Tampas of the world, Tampa's playing 500 hockey. They're actually 2 under 500 with the 2 overtime losses. So who are the contenders? Florida, Washington, and we're going to leave it right there. Likely Florida comes out of the Eastern Conference to make the Stanley Cup Finals for a third time. Now over in the West, we have the perennial pretender in the Winnipeg Jets. And right now they are tied with 92 points with, of course, the Washington Capitals. And, of course, the Caps have one game in hand on them. They are tied overall for the President's Trophy. But right now, right on their heels, it's Dallas with 3 extra losses. Or better yet, they have 2 overtime losses and 1 other loss. So, no, it's 3 and then 2 now. So they're really about 2.5 games back of Winnipeg being the Dallas Stars. But Dallas made a real nice move, adding a very good player, addition by subtraction. They took somebody away from Colorado just to bring into theirs, and that's Mikko Rantanen. A very good move for Dallas. Watch out for Dallas. They may come out of the West. Vegas, yeah, you're just a couple of wins behind the Dallas Stars, but I have to tell you, Vegas, you don't have enough on the back end. You're going to be probably a first or second round exit. Edmonton, they really didn't do anything on the back end to help themselves, and they're sitting in the 4th slot. Likely they're going to be a second round exit as well. Colorado, a very good squad. They could make the finals in the Western Conference. Very good, but that loss of Rantanen was a big loss. And then as we go down the trough, Minnesota, L.A. You know, L.A., folks, don't sleep on the Kings because the Kings actually have a very solid team, but they should have done more to help themselves at the trade deadline. They really didn't do anything. They could have taken Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins, and they chose not to. They could have taken Seth Jones from the Hawks to shore up the defense a little more, but really what they needed was somebody up front, and they could have made the deal that the Dallas Stars made for Mikko Rantanen, but they didn't do that either. The Kings are a perennial counter-punching team. So basically one team takes a punch, and so LA will come right back and try to basically outdo them on their next possession, or they'll try to steal the puck and move from there. But the counter-punching teams don't really win too many cups, and it was a fluke that they won what they won back in 12 and 14. Calgary sitting right there on the cusp. They're in the last playoff spot, but right behind them, 1 point, is Vancouver, who did not move Brock Besser at the trade deadline. They did not. But you say, well, what did Colorado do? Colorado made some moves, and Colorado made some really good moves, but they also made a bad move. Vancouver didn't make the moves. They didn't really hurt themselves. St. Louis is right there tied with Vancouver, but Vancouver's got 2 games in hand on them. Now, Utah, that's the old Arizona Coyotes, they sit 1.5 points, or 1.5 wins, we'll say, behind Vancouver and 2 wins behind Calgary. So they can make a real play. Watch out for Utah. And even Anaheim is still in the picture, believe it or not. They're a few wins off the pace. And that's a very, very fast rebuilding team. San Jose, you're the worst team right now in the National Hockey League. And it's going to stay that way for a long time. That's going to do it for the circus today, folks. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in about 24 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. The only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.